Yes, I welcome all the students for this presentation. I am Dr. S.R. Basavareddy, presenting you the Design of Machine Elements 1 on the module number 4. There are two chapters in this module as a riveted joint and a welded joint. These two joints are called as the permanent type of joints. And students have heard many times about a riveted joint and about a welded joint, which we have also done possibly in the first year course regarding the welding also. Riveted joints, possibly you have seen, these are the joints which are used in the boilers, bus body building, ship building, and also you have seen in your residential or office, the fan blades are connected to the motor by means of the rivets. The three rivets are placed. So this is what we call as a structural formation of a structural joint. So you can join one plate with another for structural requirement using the riveted joint, which is going to be called as a permanent type of joint. A rivet can be So structural joints are connected by means of riveted joints. Now the present day scenario, welding has taken a dominant role in the form of a permanent type of joints. But still, a riveted joint finds its own application, unique applications where to join structures of light alloys. In that case, welding techniques cannot be employed, therefore we have to go for a riveted joint. Why we call this as a permanent type of joint is, once a joint is formed, we cannot dismantle the joint unless we break out the plate or we break out the rivet. So any one of the member of this joint is going to get damaged when we want to open. So therefore, because of that, we call this as a permanent type of joint. And that is same also in the case of welded type of joints. So you can see here a rivet, how a rivet looks like. This is what we call as a snap head rivet. So you can see a head here. It is not exactly half the diameter. It is going to be a little semi-elliptical type. This is a straight shank which is having a diameter as a D. In this D is nothing but the design parameter which we use in our calculations later. So this is going to be called the tail portion. This is going to be get deformed later, and this becomes the same head as like this. So this is one particular joint rivet which is used invariably in all the applications. So here this rivet can be made from a aluminum alloy or it can be made from a steel. Where there is a structural strength is required, then we go for aluminum alloy. Wherever we require a lightweight alloys, then we go for the aluminum alloy. Lightweight in such case of the connect as an example given, fan blades are connected to motor blades, so we use aluminum alloy. So otherwise, the bus body building you might have seen inside, a lot of rivets are there in a particular room. So that is also going to be aluminum alloy. Then we see how this riveting arrangement is being made. So you can see here, this is one plate kept on the other plate, which we call the lap joint. There is a hole in these two plates. So this is a hole. Then we insert a rivet here. From the bottom end, we insert a rivet in the reverse way. Then I put one die here, fixed, which we call the fixed die. It is going to hold the rivet. And the other die, movable die, is placed on the top side, where this is the tail portion of the rivet. When we press it from the top side, this tail portion gets deformed and becomes to the same shape of a head, like the other bottom head, whatever I have here. In a similar way, it is going to have another head portion on the other side. So in the process of getting deformation of the tail portion, this diameter of the rivet shank is also going to get enlarged to the diameter of the hole. You can see earlier here, there is a clearance. Diameter of a rivet is little smaller than diameter of the hole. There is a clearance. Once a compressive force is applied, this is going to get laterally expanded because the bottom end you are going to get fixed. So therefore, the diameter of the shank now becomes same as the diameter of the rivet. So this is how the joint is going to get formed. So these two plates are connected together by means of the rivet joint. And now I cannot dismantle this joint unless I remove this head portion or I break out the plates. Therefore, we call this a permanent rivet joint. Now we will go for starting with a little technical terms in case of the rivet joint. So now I can have here, so there is one plate here, there is a definite edge, you can see a definite edge on this side, there is a wavy line, lengthwise is not defined, so there is a wavy line. So this is one row of rivet. You can say this is one row, one rivet is here, another rivet is here, another rivet is here. Second row is placed over here, rivet is in the staggered position, they are not symmetric. Okay, so some different terms I will define. So first definition is going to be the pitch. So you can see here, it is the center of this rivet to the center of next rivet in the same row, distance measured parallel to edge of the plate. So you are measuring parallel to this edge from center of one rivet head to the center of another rivet head in the same row. That is what we call as a pitch. That is denoted by pitch. Then we have the transverse pitch, PT. So this is transverse pitch, you can see on the figure. It is center from one rivet row to the center of another rivet row. It's adjacent, you can say. There are two. Like this, there may be many numbers. 3 rows may be there, 4 rows may be there. So center of one rivet head to the center of another rivet head, we call that as a transverse pitch. So it is going to be a perpendicular distance between center line of successive rows of rivets is known as the transverse pitch, abbreviated as PP. So then I have the margin M. You can see on the figure, this is the margin M, which is going to be from the edge of the plate to the first row. This is first row. Center of the first row to the edge of the plate. That distance we are going to call that as a margin. So margin is the distance between the center of a rivet to the nearest edge of the plate is called as a margin denoted by M. So this also, margin also plays important role in the design calculations. Then we have the diagonal pitch. You can see on the figure here, diagonal pitch is center of this rivet to the center of this rivet in the next row. But these rivets are arrangement, you can see staggered. This is what we call the staggered. We have another arrangement called as chain. If one rivet in this row is coming in the same position, one rivet here, one rivet here, one rivet here, and one rivet here. If in the same position, if it is coming, that is called as a chain riveting. If it is a staggered position is there, we call this as either staggered arrangement, otherwise called as zigzag type of arrangement. Okay. So therefore, we call the distance between. It is the distance between the centers of the rivets and the adjacent rows of a zigzag riveted joint given by PD. Then we will see now, this is an important theoretical topic, another important theoretical topic is how a riveted joint is going to fail. So if I am going to know how the joints are going to fail practically, then I can take care of that and adopt that failures in the design calculation so that my design will going to be a very, very strong one. So first one we will see the tearing of the plate at the edge. So you can see here I have shown a lap joint plate. So there is one plate here, one plate at the bottom, and there is one plate here at the top. And in the first row, in one row I have one rivet I have taken it. So this edge of the plate is going to tear off like this along the rivet when I apply the tensile force T onto the plate. So this tearing of the plate is going to take place only when if I keep insufficient value of the margin. Therefore, margin has to be equal to 1.5D to avoid this kind of failure. Minimum is going to be 1.D, where D is the diameter of the rivet shank. So edge of the plate is going to tear off at the nearest row of rivet. That's what we call as the tearing failure of the plate at the edge. It is nothing but a failure assigned to the plate. You can see carefully. There are totally 4 failures. 2 failures are assigned for the plate and 2 failures are assigned for a rivet. There are only 2 members. One is a plate, another is a rivet. Then only joint is formed. So 2 failures are assigned for a plate and 2 failures for the rivet. This is one failure assigned to the plate. Next is a tearing of the plate across the row of rivets. You can see here, same plate again. This from edge of the plate, here this row, it does not fail now. Edge of the plate does not fail because margin 1.5 I have kept already. So along the row, the wavy line, whatever I have shown, this can fail. Okay, like this. Then the plate gets separated. So this distance between the two rivets is going to be P. Centers of the rivets is P. The plate length between the rivets, half the diameter here, half the diameter here. So D. So P minus D is going to be length of the plate between the rivets. This is length of the plate. This is going to P. So tensile force applied across the plate causes the failure across the row of rivets. Now here we calculate tearing resistance of the plate per pitch length. So only one pitch there, because in this row there can be many number of rivets. So there can be 100 number of rivets. So we are not going to calculate along the length of the rivet. We calculate only per pitch length, failure per pitch length. So as a result, what is the area of the plate? Area is going to be P minus D. This is between the rivets. P minus D is the pitch, is the length, into thickness T. That gives me the area of the plate. So P minus D into T is going to be area of the plate multiplied by tensile strength of the plate. That's going to give me tensile resistance. This is what we call as a tearing resistance, or pull required to tear off the plate to cause the failure. You require stress into area, that is going to be force or resistance. So P minus D, it is the length of the plate between the rivets into thickness T, that gives you the area. Area into stress, that gives you the force. So this is one kind of failure. So this is again a failure assigned to plates. Then we go for shearing of the rivets. So now plates failure have been taken care. So plate does not fail across the edge as well as across the row. So that is what is the next failure. So a rivet can fail along the plate. So now you can see here. So when the force applied is going to be like this. This is a riveted joint which is formed. This rivet is going to move along with this direction. This rivet is going to move along with this direction. The applied force is going to be quite large. So therefore it is going to shear off at the junction of the two plates. So this is what we call a single shear failure. So there is along this shaft length, there is only one plane of a failure. This is what we call a single shear failure. So whenever we have a lap joint, whenever we have a single cover butt joint, this kind of failure is going to happen. So this is what we have written here. Now consider next case where I have the butt joint. You can see here, this is one plate, this is another plate, these two are butting over here. I kept one top cover plate, one bottom cover plate, a riveted joint is formed. This is one row here and this is another row here. Okay. When you apply the force to the parent plate here as well as here, if the force is quite larger, this plate is going to move. The parent plate is going to move in this direction. This parent plate is going to move in this direction. So as a result, along the length of the shaft, this is total length of the shaft, there is one failure, one plane of failure here between the top cover plate and the parent plate. Another failure between the bottom plate and the cover plate, parent plate, one failure here. So shank is going to displace at two different plates. One is here and one is here. This is what we call as a double shear. So this happens for double cover riveted joints. Whenever we have double cover riveted joints, we have the two plane of shear. Therefore, area of shear failure. Here I have one plane, so area is 5/4 d square. So here I have the two plane. One plane is here, another plane here. So area is going to be multiplied by 2 times. So it's a 2 times 5/4 d square. So I have written here, area is 5/4 d square for single shear. Area is going to be 2 times 5/4 d square for double shear. So this is now. As per the IBR, Indian Boiler Regulation, because we are going to design the riveted joint for a general structural purpose or otherwise for boilers. There are two different cases. When you are designing for aeroplane structure or maybe for bodybuilding structures, bus bodybuilding or ship building, these are called as structural joints. When we design the boiler using the riveted joint for a boiler purpose, where locomotive boilers are going to be there, where water is being heated for a steam pressure, so that has to get folded inside. So then we are going to have the riveted joint for the boiler. In that case, Indian Boiler Regulation, we design the boiler as per this regulation only. So in that case, instead of a double shear failure as a 2 times, it recommends us to take 1.875. So we are required to take, wherever double shear failure are there, so we require to take 1.875 for d square for double shear as per IBR recommendation. Therefore, shearing resistance or pull required for rivets is going to be PS is going to be 54 d square tau into n. It's for single shear, and n times 1.85875 d square tau for double shear as per idea. So where n is going to be number of rivets per pitch length. This is number of rivets per pitch length. So this is n is going to play important role. So how to take this number of rivets per pitch length? I'll explain this to you along with the examples. Okay. Then crushing of rivets. I have the last one. This is shearing of rivets associated for rivet. Crushing is also associated with rivet. Suppose if rivets are going to be strong in shear, if it does not fail, it may crush within the plate. So if thickness of the plate is T, so rivet is going to get crushed in this manner along the direction of the force of plate. One is going to bend like this, another is going to bend like this in this particular bottom plate. So the crushing area is going to be D into T. So this is diameter of the rivet into thickness of the plate. It plays an important role. So D into T is the crushing area. If there are n number of rivets per pitch length, it is n into D into T. Therefore, crushing resistance in that case is going to be PC is n into D into T into sigma C, where sigma C is permissible crushing stress value for the rivet material. So we have determined, leaving the margin M, there are three failures mainly associated for the plate is one, tearing resistance of plate across the row, shearing resistance of the rivets, and crushing resistance of the rivets. If the value of this riveted joint will fail when the force applied on the rivets reaches either PT or PS or PC. That is, whatever the force you apply here, if this force reaches any one of these, either PT, tearing or shearing or crushing, anyone becomes equal to that, then the plate joint is going to get failed. Then we go for defining the next one as the efficiency of the joint. So it is defined as the ratio of strength of the riveted joint to the strength of the unriveted or solid plate. So whenever we do riveting, that means we have to drill a hole and then form the joint. That means joint is going to get weakened. So that weakened strength we compare with reference to unriveted plate. That's what we have. That is again per pitch length only. Unriveted plate per pitch length. Solid plate. Therefore, what is the strength of that solid plate? Strength of solid plate on unriveted plate is going to P into T into sigma T. So here P stands for pitch length, that is between the centers of the two rivet holes. Actually, hole is not there. We mark the point of two possible pitch length. So between that is going to be plate length into thickness, that is going to give me area into sigma T, that will be force. This is going to be strength of the plate, solid plate or unriveted plate. So this we compare with respect to PT, PS or PC. Whichever is going to be less, that is going to form the numerator. So you can see efficiency of riveted joint, least strength of PT or PS or PC whole divided by strength of the solid plate, that is P into T into sigma T. So in this case, we are going to have sigma is, if PT is going to be the least, that's what we have written, P minus D into T into sigma T in the numerator. So solid plate is P, that is P into T into sigma T. So cancelling P sigma T, you have P minus T by T into, that gives me tearing efficiency of the plate. That's the efficiency. So design of a riveted joint. Since the riveted joint can fail in any of the three ways, that is by tearing across the length of the plate, by shearing of the rivets or by crushing of the rivet, hence the design of the riveted joint should be such that equally strong in shearing, crushing and tearing, otherwise joint is going to fail. Therefore, the joint has to be made equally strong in shearing, crushing and tearing aspects. Then we have the types of riveted joints. This is the basic things what we are supposed to learn. So we have lap joint, we have the butt joint. Lap joint and butt joint of things we have studied in the first aid fitting lab. When you keep one plate over the other plate, it is called as a lap joint. When we face the two plates butting each other, then we call that as a butt joint. In the lap joint, we have again single riveted lap joint, double riveted lap joint, triple riveted lap joint. These are the three varieties. Means it depends on how many rows of rivets you are going to use to form the joint. Suppose if lap joint, one plate over the plate, I have only one row of rivets. In every row, I may have many number of rivets. Okay, there can be 10 number of rivets, there can be 20 number of rivets, there can be 100 number of rivets. If I use two number of rows of rivets, then it is called as a double riveted lap joint. If I use 3 rows of rivets, it's called a triple riveted lap joint. Similarly, in butt joint, I have a single cover butt joint, I have a double cover butt joint. How many cover plates you are going to use? If you are going to use only one, it becomes single row. If I use two covers, one at the top, one at the bottom, it's called as a double cover. In each of these cover plates, we have the again types, depends on the rows of rivets, single row, double row, triple row, and a quadruple row. So 4 row of rivets is also possible over here. I will just give a sketch, a schematic sketch of single riveted lap joint, how it looks like. So it's the plan view and the sectional view is shown over here. So it is going to be one bottom plate is kept over here and one top plate is kept over here. So it is going to be lap joint, one plate over the other plate. This edge of the plate is defined, this edge of the plate is defined. Sir, I am in class, shall I call you after 2 minutes? Okay. Yeah, I am taking class now. Please, I will call you afterwards. This is going to be margin M, which is going to be distance from this edge of the plate to the first row and from this edge of the plate to the first row. This becomes the first row for bottom edge of the plate as well as the top edge of the plate. So this should be margin as a 1.5D, this should be margin as a 1.5D. This is the pitch P. Okay, distance between center of this rivet, center of this rivet. So that's what the terms we are going to have. Then you are going to have the total coverage as a 1.5D and the thickness of the plate. This is a sectional view for one row of rivets. Like this, I may have 2 rows or 3 rows of rivets according to that. Then the design of the joint we are required to calculate what is the pitch here, what is the margin here, what is the thickness, what is the diameter of the rivet, all the information I am supposed to have it. And this edge of the plate we can see here this slightly slanted is by 10 degree. It is not perfectly right angle here. It is a 10 degree here and it is also 10 degree in the bottom side of the plate. So this is what we call the beveling of the plate. The plate has to be beveled like this. Okay. Then I have the last case of the design of the riveted joint as per IBR regulations. That's what we call the structural joint. If you are using the joint for boilers, then only use this rule. So IBR, Indian boiler regulation says that longitudinal joint means the joint along the length of the plate, then that has to be done with the butt joint. This is a recommendation. The joint which is along the axis has to be butt joint. The joint which is perpendicular, that is going to be circumferential direction, that has to be lap joint. This is a recommendation. You cannot interchange these. Then in this case, we have the thickness of the boiler shell is determined from T is equal. This is from the thin cylinder which you have studied mechanics of material. That only example is taken here. Pi d by 2 sigma T into eta. That is efficiency. Here Pi stands for steam pressure inside the boiler, Newton per millimeter square. D is the internal diameter of the boiler, millimeter. Sigma T is the permissible tensile stress of the plate. Eta is the efficiency of the longitudinal joint. This is given in the table, in the 5.1 table rectangle. This is given. We can choose this in case it is not given to me. So thickness of the boiler shell should not be less than 7 mm. It should be always greater than 8 mm. So next is I am required to calculate what is the diameter of the rivet, which is determined from the Amin's formula in case if the thickness is greater than 8 mm. So there is a proportion equation is given. T is equal to 6.07 square root of T, where T is the thickness of the plate in millimeter. Then we have the maximum pitch of the rivets in longitudinal joint is given by the boiler equation. P is equal to K1T plus 41 millimeter, where K1 is to be referred from the table 5.4a, the handbook. Otherwise, minimum pitch P minimum recommended as 2.25D to 2.5D. So pitch can be used from these two equations. Transverse pitch in case is nothing but the multiple rows, 2 rows or 3 rows if you are using. If there are equal number of rivets in every row, so this is the first case A, 4A, equal number of rivets in every row, then I have the PT greater than equal to D for chain riveting, PT greater than equal to 0.33P plus 0.670 for zigzag riveting. So these equations are also available in the handbook. Next is if the number of rivets in the outer row is alternatively omitted compared to inner row. So that is we are going to have. So if it is going to be a staggered case, the distance between the outer and inner row is going to be greater equal to 0.33t plus 0.67d. Otherwise, it's going to be R2d, whichever is greater. Then we have the thickness of the cover plate in case we are using the double cover button. If it is going to be single strap TI inner plate 1.125T or double cover with equal width is going to be TI is equal to T0 is equal to 0.625T. For unequal widths, having every alternate rivet in the outer row omitted, then T0 is 0.625T, TI is 0.75T. So these equations are available in the data handbook. Only you have to refer this condition, where you are going to have, whether you have this condition or this condition or this condition, then pick up any one equation and calculate the thickness of the cover plate. Then keep the margin as 1.5D and then calculate the efficiency of the joint, which I will explain to you along with the example. Okay. So then the examples are going to start from the next class. So this I conclude from here. So this completes the theoretical part of the riveted joint. So hardly you have 5-6 equations are involved. Some data handbooks are gives you complete equations and tables are there. You can refer easily and do example under the riveted. Very simple. Okay. Thank you and see you in the next class.